Today, I'm going to be talking about probably one of the most boring topics in InfoSec for a lot of people is certifications, right? So I'm going to be talking about CISSP. I will try not to bore you too much. Hopefully, you're interested in, or you're here today because you're interested in learning a little bit more about it. You've been maybe tasked with taking it. That happens a lot. Um, or you're just curious. And I will try to answer some of those questions about, what's in it, how should you study for it, what are the different options out there, that sort of thing. So I'll give you some initial guidance. Now, as part of Secure Ideas, we do a 10-week mentorship program that is for studying for the CISSP, and I think it starts up next week, actually, for the current run. So part of what I'll be talking about is what we can do for you there, and that's done through Anti-cast. So I guess the first thing I need to do is talk about me a little bit. So my name's Jason Gillam. I am the CIO at Secure Ideas. I still, on rare occasion, get to do pen testing. That's what we mostly do. I'm an IONS faculty member. If you're not familiar with IONS, they do like ask an expert type of services and other things. I have my CISSP and I maintain it, and currently that's the only certification that I care to continue to maintain. And I'll get into why that is later. I am an OWASP project committee member. So if you're into application security and have any questions about that, feel free to ask. I've been into hacking things since about 2009. And prior to that, I was software development for a very long time. I had a Commodore VIC-20 in the mid 80s. And of course, the very first thing I did with that was program a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet generator, because that's what you do when you're about that age and have a computer. So yeah, I've been doing software development for a pretty long time. So other things that I like to do, of course, because I like software development so much and I still do it, automation is one of my big things. Home automation, writing scripts to do things. I am the type of person that will spend hours trying to automate something that will save me a few minutes of work. So that's, it's fun. I enjoy it. Real question is, do I still have a D&D character gen? I don't think I have one now, but you could probably get an LLM to write one for you these days. So maybe might be kind of an interesting take on it. Also, because of the fact that I now have a greater portion of my time spent managing a company, whereas previously I didn't, business strategy in general is something that I really enjoy. I used to think I would hate business, and then, over the last few years, I've kind of gotten more into it, which I know that's kind of goes along the line. Okay, here's another boring topic to stack on top of the CISSP. And I have some fun things. I really enjoy gaming. I like board games. I like video games. And I also enjoy homebrewing. I unfortunately haven't had a chance to do very much lately, but just homebrewing of most types. I haven't made any like wine or anything like that, but I've done ciders and meads and various different ales. So boring stuff pays well. Yeah, it does. So well enough, I guess. So let's move on. So what is the CISSP? It is the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, right? That's the long form of it. So you can kind of understand why we always shorten it to CISSP, or even more so CISSP, or I've also heard some people say CISSP, but I usually just pronounce the whole thing as a single syllable, just CISSP. So it comes from ISC 2. I You'll always hear me hesitate when I say that because they were ISC squared for the longest time, and just, I think it was last year they switched to ISC 2. So every time I say it, it's like ISC 2, right? Got to think about that. Um, and the And it's so IC2, by the way. They're a nonprofit body. They're focused on training, certification, and continuing education in the cybersecurity space in general. So they do have several different certifications. Today, I'm talking about the CISSP, that's the I guess sort of the entry level for leadership type. It's, as I said before, it's, that mile wide, inch deep knowledge scope on there. And it is recognized, it is the most recognized certification in InfoSec, just as a general certification. So not getting into specifics, I saw somebody mention in the chat OSCP, which for pen testing, that's a more specific domain. But for something that's across all domains, it is the most recognized one. And that's, um, I can't remember exactly where the data is to back that up, but I want to say it's based on LinkedIn searching or something like that. So, um, yeah, so if you're going to look to get hired by a company to do any sort of cybersecurity job, it certainly doesn't help to have this on your resume. So. Yes, nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean no money. There's money involved for sure. Um, okay, so let's talk about prerequisites, right? So if you want to go through the CISSP exam and certification and get this, what do you need to what do you need to have before you get there? So first of all, you have to actually agree. There's a code of ethics. This is one of the few certifications that parts of it actually are an ethics test. So, and you're agreeing to the code of ethics that they have, and I'll get into more details on what that looks like later. But that is a big part of it. So if there's any part of the code of ethics that you disagree with, then you should forget about getting your CISSP, because it's, you're required to agree to it. In order to receive the CISSP certification, so even after you've done the exam, you have to have 5 years of experience within at least two domains. Now, what you're going to find, I'm going to show you the domains on the next slide. There's enough overlap between domains that most people who have been doing some sort of tech role for at least 5 years have exposure to more than one of the domains anyway. Right. So you're going to see that there's quite a bit of overlap. So 5 years, or you can get that shortened down to 4 if you have a college degree. I never really understood why that matters, but apparently it does. Or 4 years of experience with an approved security certification. So, and there's the list on here is an example, right? So there's CCSP, CISM, Security Plus. They have on the IC2 website, there's a massive list of certifications that are supported there. So it doesn't have to be one of those. It can be anything from the actual list that they have. And then if you don't have any of the above, you can still take the exam, get what they call an associate of ISC2. And then you have 6 years to gain that 5 years worth of experience in total over that time. So that's helpful. Like let's say you only have 3 years of experience, you can go take your exam, be an associate, collect the remaining 2 years of experience, and then you would get your certification at that point in time. So, so those are the prerequisites. And then, yes, so there is an endorsement requirement as well. I don't have that on this slide, but that's after you've passed the exam, you do need an endorsement as well. That's a good point. Okay, so I'm just glancing at Discord to see if there are any questions. I don't see any.
If Jason, if you want, I'll keep an eye on that. I'll bring them up to you if there's something that doesn't get
Yeah,
addressed.
that'd be great. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Um, I'm sort of looking at it the corner of my eye, but it's scrolling by so fast, I'm missing things, I'm sure. So, all right, so let's talk about the domains. I know the text on this is a little bit of an eye chart, so I'll go over it in a little bit. So what I've done here is I've updated the percentages with the latest. I think it came out in June-ish this year, the 10th edition of the official um, the official CISSP study guide, and what the requirements are. So there were some minor changes. I'll go over those later, but they're in the actual content. But there were some minor changes in the 10th edition with the percentages on here. It was really like a couple of shifting of 1% here and there, so nothing major. So going through these are the domains that you're going to be expected to, I'll say master. You don't have to know everything about everything in all the domains. Remember, it's an inch deep and a mile wide. So you need to have a good foundation in all of these domains in order to be able to get your CISSP cert. So the first one, starting with number one, security and risk management. So this is going to cover things like governance, compliance, legal, regulatory type stuff. Ethics is in there as well, and just risk management in general is in there. And then the second one is about asset security. Seems self-explanatory, right? So we're talking about data classifications, ownerships, retention destruction policy type stuff, privacy protection. So a bunch of those types of topics. And then in your security architecture and engineering, this is the domain that a lot of people dread because it has the security models and frameworks in it. So the BIBA and anyway, all of those. Well, I'm trying not to actually get into actual content here, but yeah. So there's a bunch of security models. Traditionally, we've had to do a lot of memorization on those, and so that's one of the reasons why people don't like it. Because it's like, hey, there's this model out here. I've understand this model, and I'll probably never actually refer to this model again. You'll use it, but you just won't refer to it by name. So why do you have to memorize it? But that is part of the exam. Um, Also in that section is principles of cryptography. And I believe the physical security falls into this one as well, into the third domain. So rolling back years ago, there used to be 10 domains, and then they shrunk them down. I think it was 10 domains. They shrunk them down. Physical security was in its own domain by itself, and then it got moved into one of the others. Then we have communications and network security. All right, so this is probably what most people think of when they're thinking of information security is the network security aspects, right? So you're talking about the different components, get into firewalls, network architecture, segmentation, different communication protocols, all of that kind of good stuff, right? The next one on here, number 5, is identity and access management. Right, so authentication, authorization controls, various different access control models, the identity management lifecycle, all of that kind of stuff falls into domain 5. And then in 6, we have security assessment and testing. So this is getting into basically what we do, right, at SecurIdeas, which would be penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, various different control testing strategies, all of that kind of stuff falls into domain 6. And domain 7 is operations, right? So we're talking about incident management, business continuity, logs, monitoring, that all of the operational aspects of security. And then last but not least, domain 8 is software development security. So that gets into it'll be application specific flaws, secure coding practices. I know in the pre-show banter we talked a little bit about the software development maturity models and life cycles and whatnot. So a lot of that will fall in there as well. And then I think in there also that's where you'll find the third party security management, like some of the supply chain stuff. I want to say that's also in this domain. There's parts of that in different domains. So, like I said, there's a lot of overlap between these. It'd be very rare for someone to only have experience in a single domain. So, going back to the prerequisites, it's pretty easy to have domain experience across more than one. And so it's the bar to entry is not that difficult if you're an actual security practitioner. Okay.
Sorry, Jace. Mouse asked us, how far up the ladder should you go before you get the CISSP? So what's your overall recommendation?
I don't know that you need to go up the ladder to get it. So it's a good question. I think that once you're at a point where you are, I don't know, like middle management at least, you should definitely be looking to get it. But I also think that there are benefits to getting it, even if you're an individual contributor on a team. It gives you a better understanding of security at whole within an organization, and that is only going to be able to help you in your job and your career progression going forward. And it's like I said before, it's also a really great point to have on your resume. So if you're in a position where you're switching jobs, having the CISSP on there will definitely help you get your foot in the door.
I totally agree with all that. I always thought that it was good to have the big picture, and I thought it was really great when they put out that associate, where you can like be working towards the experience. And it obviously gets a ton of attention on your resume. So good stuff.
Yep. All right. Okay, so I'll keep moving here. I don't have tons of slides, but I also have never presented this deck before, so I want to make sure I get through all of it. So the code of ethics. So this is what's on there. There's a preamble. Okay, so all of this to me makes sense, and I fully agree and support the IC2's code of ethics. The safety and welfare of society and the common good, duty to our principles and duty to each other require that we adhere and be seen to adhere to the highest ethical standards of behavior. One thing that I'd just point out is that little bit at the end that I put emphasis on and be seen to adhere. That's really important in our industry, right? It's not just, are you doing the right thing by the letter? Is that what it appears that you're doing as well? Because if you have the appearance of unethical behavior because of the manner in which you're doing something, then that tarnishes us as information security professionals. And I think that being in especially in the domain of penetration testing, where we sell ourselves in Black Hills is in the same boat, right? We sell ourselves as hackers for hire. That's even makes that even more important that we do that, and that like everything that we do, we show that, hey, all of this is above board. We're not doing anything shady. Yes, we think like attackers. We think like the bad guys, but we do that in a very professional manner, and an ethical manner. And I think that's really important that it be seen that way. So next part, therefore, strict adherence to the code is a condition of certification. So the canons and the order of the canons is important. So they're actually ordered from the highest priority to the lowest. Not to say that the lowest priority is not a priority, it definitely is. But protect society, the common good, necessary public trust and confidence, and the infrastructure. Act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally. Provide diligent and competent service to principals, and advance and protect the profession. Right? So that covers the ISC2 code of ethics. Now, if you are doing the exam, I think I'll talk about this later as well, but the the code of ethics will be the first thing you see in that exam once you go into it. And you have there's like a countdown timer, and you have to accept the code of ethics before that time's out, or you're done. Your exam's over and you fail. I have actually heard of a case where this happened, and it wasn't intentional. The person, like, you get like a whiteboard. It used to be a pad of paper or something that you could jot down some notes. So things that you've memorized and you want to just get them down on paper while you're nervous before you actually start answering questions. And so what'll happen is people would sit down, start writing out all of their notes and everything. It would take them a little more than 5 minutes, and then they would turn to the terminal to start the exam, and they will have timed out that first question, which is, do you agree to the code of ethics? So that's a really bad scenario. And it happens. So if you take it, just remember that. Do that first, then write down your notes. So,
Hey, Jason, real quick, it sounds like you actually like put some emphasis on that. Whereas I think a lot of people treat this as sort of a, yes, you have to sign the user agreement.
uh, well, yeah, I mean, hopefully going in there, you will have already read the code of ethics, so you know what it's going to say all going beforehand. And I don't see anything in here that you shouldn't agree with. But if you do have, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's non-trivial though. I mean, our society, we tend to have put things like this. I commented in the chat earlier about
Yeah.
oaths and things. We tend to just kind of sweep them like it's a formality you have to do, but it's not.
In this case, no, it isn't. You will actually, if you are in violation of this code of ethics, you'll lose your certification.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's lawyers tend to put a big thing on this too. I guess that's one of the things where it comes from. But this is like the code of chivalry, right? Like
Mhm.
if you're out fighting the good fight for good, and then it is almost trivial that you accept it, but it's very serious and foundational. So
It is. Yeah,
off
I agree with that.
soapbox.
Okay, so the exam overview. Um, so it's offered in several different languages. There's actually two forms of the exam, and the main one. So they have the CAT, or the computerized adaptive testing, and then they have what they call, I think it's called the linear exam. And the linear is like the old way they used to do it, and that's still available for example, if you are taking it in a language that the CAT form doesn't support, then that is still an option for people. But for most people, you'd be taking the CAT version. So it's a minimum of 100 questions, a maximum of 150, and you have 3 hours to do that in. Okay, so you can kind of math that to figure out, okay, it's about, if you keep a pace of answering 50 questions every hour, then you'll have enough time to do it even if you go to the maximum number of questions. It's adaptive. So it is possible that you'll get to question 100 and the exam will have determined at that point you really know your stuff, so you're passed. Or you really don't know your stuff. There's no way that the remaining 50 questions is going to make a difference. So you can fail at that point, or you can go all the way to the 50. And I've heard the same thing from almost everyone who's taken this exam. I didn't take the CAT, I took the older one. But everyone who's taken the CAT, they got to the end, and it doesn't matter if their end was at 100 questions or 125 or 150, and they walk out of there very insecure in terms of, geez, I really don't know how I did. Did I pass or not? And then they find out they passed. So it's if you're well prepared, then don't worry about that aspect. Don't worry about, like, don't let it bother you that, oh, it ended at a certain number of questions. You just go through till you're done, and just plan on there being 150. If it ends early, that's probably a good thing. So there are 25 unscored questions in there too. So you won't know which of the 100 to 150 questions are actual questions that are scored. So what they do is they have any like new questions that they bring in, they kind of test them. And so you're not actually scored against those. That helps them evaluate how effective the question was. So you don't really find out which items you passed and which ones you didn't. Um, it's just pass or fail, right? So okay. Let's talk a little bit about the question types. Because the other thing too, and I don't think I mentioned this on here, is there's no going back. So you should answer every single question. You can't pass and come back to it later. If you don't answer the question, you're automatically going to fail that question. So most of the questions are standard multiple choice. That's four options, pick an answer. And which that maps a lot to a lot of the practice questions that you get. Because obviously, if you're reading practice questions out of a book or online or whatever, then those are not going to be adaptive. So that's probably not going to help you there. Although I will say this, I found that an interesting strategy to test yourself against like a certain chapter or something in the book is to go to an AI like ChatGPT or Claude, and and you have it quiz you and then score how you did. And if you word the prompt right, you can have it actually ask you open-ended questions. So it's actually testing how well do you know the topic rather than how well do you answer a multiple choice. So that's actually a pretty neat study hack there. But so some of the questions will require select two, select three, that sort of thing. Those can be difficult because you're trying to figure out, okay, what are the best options or what are the least worst options, um, and then um, and then some are a little bit more innovative, like drag and drop type things. But most of them are going to be multiple choice. Uh, so
Yeah,
that's
someone commented earlier saying that the answers are subjective. And I'm like, well, I guess that's somewhat true, but you have to learn the rote. You can really pick that up out of the books. And I'm sure in your mentoring, you guys help on that test taking strategy, right? What is the best answer, which is can be
that's exactly it. There are many cases where there's a list of answers and more than one of those answers is technically correct.
Mhm.
And one thing that we drill into our students during the mentorship is that as soon as your brain starts going down that path of, well, technically, you need to take a step back, put your manager hat on, and think, okay, from a manager perspective, which answer is correct? Because one of those is better than the other answers, or is the least worst answer.
And the overthinking thing can just kill you and
Yes.
put you
Yeah.
in. And the bad thing is when they don't give you the test results, right? You don't know, well, did I get that right or wrong? You just never
You'll
know.
never know.
You'll know. It's frustrating as that.
You will never know. Yeah. No,
Uh,
you're absolutely right.
awesome.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit about. So if you've looked previously, like I said, I want to say it was around June, July this year, the 10th edition came out. And I might be wrong on that, but I know that it with sometime within the last few months because it was after the last time we did our mentorship program. Um, but there were actually some adjustments. I went through. I didn't read cover to cover the new one, but I did go through all of the study points at the end of each chapter and did some comparisons between the ninth and 10th edition. So if you have the ninth edition, you're wondering, hey, do I need to buy a new book? I'm not going to tell you yes or no, but I will tell you what's changed. So the 10th edition, there's the minor changes to the domain weights. I mentioned that before. I think a couple of things moved by just 1%. So there's really that's not really enough to worry about there. There's no major changes to domain content that I saw. Like there was nothing that like, hey, there's this whole brand new topic on there that was never covered before. And it's brand new to this edition. There may be subsections in places and some adjustments on specifics. but I didn't see anything that was, so I was like, hey, here's this whole brand new topic in there. Um, Overall, I think the changes look really good. It seems to be a general shift towards understanding the concepts better and away from memorizing stuff. Not that you won't have to memorize stuff. There's still going to be things that you're going to go, I just don't get this. I'm going to have to memorize it. That's going to happen. But I think that the emphasis on here is on less on memorization. And one of just as a key point on that, I talked about the security models earlier. And I know that, and because I went back through and flipped through that whole chapter because I was like, oh yeah, security models, one of everyone's favorite topics. They've actually removed several of the specific security models in the 10th edition. They're just not there anymore. They have some of the main ones in there. Bella Epadula and BIPA, for example, those are still there. There's still, a couple of others that are distinct, but it seems like they've moved more towards the concepts that drive those models and understanding those instead of focusing on just memorizing the model. So that seems to be a positive change there. I don't know how that's going to affect the questions in the exam. I have no way to know that, but I'm hoping that it drives more towards just understanding those foundational concepts. There's also a little bit of restructuring of content to group some concepts together that were previously, apart, and little less emphasis on the minutia, the formulas. There's still some in there. There's still some math that you have to do. Like if you're looking in the encryption chapters, it's still going to have the various different uh, bitwise math that's on there. So you still have to understand the basics of and or and XOR and all that. And yeah, I think that covers everything.
So someone asked, one of the questions is the people who are about to start in your new cohort, is that going to get the newest book?
Yeah, yeah, that should be with the newest book.
And then there's a general question about there, what are the best study resources?
I well, I have a couple slides coming up that might cover that. So let me go through
Awesome.
that first, and then yeah. So first, training options. So if you're looking at like all of the options that are out there, the main ones that people will use is self-study. Okay, so you use the official study guide, practice tests, and go to a study group and forums, that sort of thing. You can use a combination of these, of course, but self-study is cheap. You're paying for the books, and then you're finding free resources. There are several forums out there that I mean, it's a pretty common topic. I haven't looked. I imagine there is a subreddit for it. I know there's one for InfoSec. I don't know if there's one specifically for CISSP, but I would be surprised if there wasn't. ISC2 has a couple of options directly. One is a online self-paced course, and I think you pay for access to it. And I don't know what the cost is, but I think you pay for access to it by number of months. So you can get like a 1 month or a 3 month or a 6 month subscription to that. And then there's also online instructor led that they do as well. There's also a variety of boot camps, and ISC2 partners with organizations that'll run those boot camps under the ISC2 brand. And there's also others, third parties that you can go to for boot camps. I personally, I did a boot camp. I think they're okay for a review period, but it's really a massive cram session. It's not very pleasant at all. So it's not my preferred way of doing this. And then we have through Antisyphon, we do our professional evil CISSP mentorship program. And that is, I was talking about it before, so I'll just do a quick rundown on this. I think it's a good option, but I'm biased. We do 10 weeks of basically it's reading assignments and then study groups. So we do a 2 hour review session. And we typically will have two instructors. We rotate people around depending on their strengths and availability. And so we'll have two people lead that. And then we also have a Slack channel. And the other really cool thing about this one, it is a pay what you can through Antisyphon. The other really cool thing is it's repeatable. So once you, like, if you decide to join for this one coming up this fall, and then you get partway through it, you get too busy and you decide, hey, I'm not going to be ready for my exam, or maybe you go through the whole thing and you say, I'm studying, but I'm not quite scoring high enough. I'm not comfortable. Then you can re-enroll at no additional cost into the next one, and then come back through again with us. So one thing that a lot of our students have mentioned about this is that they really liked. It wasn't just that we were giving them the information and telling them how to like what they needed to learn in CISSP. We told them some of that, but we were only doing a 2-hour review session over each week for 10 weeks. So really, they did a lot of the work themselves, but we kept them on a schedule, right? So it's you have this, we're going to do this, right? We have this commitment, we get through it, and that seems to be very helpful for our students. So some combination of those is pretty much what you have. Now, okay, so I have study tips, and then I actually have a slide that goes over some of the other resources available to you, including practice exams. So first of all, you need some sort of schedule. It really depends on the individual what works, but just recognize that the official study guide, if you can see this, it is over 1,100 pages long. There's a lot of content in there. I am a slow reader, so I'm going to take a bit more time to absorb content. And I mean, even if you say, hey, I'm going to spend an hour studying on this over every day for 30 days, that's pushing it for some people. You probably need longer than that even. So maybe you're doing an hour of study over 60 days or something like that. But create a schedule, stick to it. Practice the sample questions regularly, right? At the end of the day, you're going to be doing an exam of these questions. And so really you're basically not just studying the content, but also studying to be able to take that exam at that pace. And especially if you're like me, I mean, I went to college years ago, quite a long time ago. That's the last time I did any real exams, right? Other than the occasional certification. And so it's not something that I'm accustomed to at all. Not like even back in college, I was in engineering, so I was doing many exams every semester, and I learned very well how to cram for them and be able to answer. So if you're not, unless that's still familiar with you, you're going to want to be able to get yourself reaccustomed to, okay, answering questions and staying on a cadence and actually staying alert enough to do this for 3 hours straight. So those are the types of things that you want to get yourself some practice on. There's lots of resources out there. There's the official study guide, which I just held up. You can buy a bundle of that study guide along with, actually I have that book here too. There's a official practice tests, right? So those are both from ISC2, and that's what we use in our mentorship because we want to make sure that we're studying off of the official materials. But there are lots of other books. Somebody had mentioned Eric Conrad's 11th Hour book. That one's also very good. I think that it doesn't go into quite as much depth. At least the last time I looked at it, it didn't. But it explains things in simpler terms in many cases, and it's a little bit easier to digest. And it's a really good, maybe that week before you're taking the exam, use that as your review all of the material, make sure you understand it all type of book instead of trying to reread 1,100 pages of the IC2 official guide, right? So you want to focus on understanding concepts, not trying to memorize all of the things. If you're having trouble understanding concepts, have a conversation with other people. there's so many people who get their CISSP, they they want to help other people get it as well. So don't be afraid of like this, hey, I'm not getting this concept, I feel stupid. It's yeah, just ask. Like ask for some help. People will help you. Um, I recommend that for those things that you're having trouble understanding, because there's always going to be something. I mean, you have 8 domains, there's tons of information in there. There's going to be some things that you're like, I just don't really see a concept here that I can grasp, but I could memorize it. I would start writing those out in your own cheat sheet. Just the act of writing it out is going to help you memorize and help you just grasp it better. So that's what I do. But you want to do what works for you. So I mentioned study groups, study partners. And the last point, of course, really important, take care of your physical and mental health. Like some people run themselves into the ground while they're trying to study for the CISSP, and that really doesn't help you. So if you're unable to actually stay awake when you go to take the exam because you've been studying that hard. Okay, so I see a question about endorsement. How do you find someone to endorse you? Now that's a bit of a trick, isn't it? Most people who are in InfoSec know somebody else with the CISSP who would be willing to endorse them, right? So it's basically just saying, hey, yeah, I know this person. I know they work in information security or cybersecurity, and and you're done, right? That's basically all that is. But if you don't know anybody at all, you're brand new to the field or what have you, then it gets a little bit harder. What I would suggest at that point is uh, involve yourself in the community. There are information security, if it either through work is one thing, but in the community, we have conferences like every weekend, it feels like. There's an InfoSec conference somewhere. And so the likelihood that there's one in your area is pretty much 100% that there's something nearby. Um, so, and I happen to know that that Black Hills has some kind of conference coming up too. So you, you could go to that one. Um, okay, on to the next. So practice exams, there's, like I said, you want to go through and get yourself accustomed to those. So the way that this is, I would recommend that if you don't have other resources readily available, that you get the official practice test book I was showing earlier, because it has 4 complete tests in it, and then it has a bunch of extra questions on it. And then it also has a bunch of domain specific tests. So you can study the chapters for a particular domain and then test yourself on just that domain. So it has lots and lots, and it's also from ISC2, the same company that's actually issuing the exam. So it really makes sense to get a copy of that book. So, and then also in the study guide itself, there's lots of questions at the end of each chapter. So that's a really good set of resources there. I know that there are question banks online as well. There's flashcards. There's and I think you get access to the IC2 set of flashcards through their materials. Normally, that's how that works. And then I just haven't checked with the 10th edition if anything's changed there. And then yeah, and so I mean you can search around. I'm not going to point out specifics on here because it's a common enough certification that there's plenty of resources already out there. And then there's also the chat GPT or Claude AI type trick I mentioned earlier, right? So if you write out some of the basics of requirements for a particular chapter or something like that into a prompt, then you can have it quiz you on that knowledge. So that's one way to do it as well. One thing I would recommend is when you're doing the practice exams, maybe not necessarily the smaller ones, but when you decide, hey, I'm going to sit down and do a full one, actually time yourself. Don't stop at 3 hours if it takes you longer. I would still go through and finish it. But that will help you gain a feel for what sort of cadence you need to be answering the questions at. Sometimes you'll look at a question, it's like, yeah, I know the answer to that, and you get it, and it takes you, 15 or 20 seconds total. But then you'll have others that might take you a couple of minutes to think through. So, but the overall cadence, that's what you're aiming for there, is to have a good understanding of that. You don't want to get to the end of your time before you're done your questions. So, okay, so my scoring guidelines, what I'd like to say is that when you are about midway through studying for your CISSP, you're on track if you're scoring somewhere between 40 to 60%. Like it's that low. Now I say 40 to 60 because part of it's going to depend on whether or not you're covering domains that you're already familiar with or domains that you're completely unfamiliar with. And that's probably going to affect your overall score. Like if, for example, we know that the software security one is the last domain. And that was a strength for me. So I was naturally scoring a little bit higher halfway through because I hadn't covered that domain yet in the book, but I still intuitively knew a lot of the answers. So, and then what I say, these are my own guidelines this is what I tell people and what I recommend. Don't, don't plan to take your exam if you are not able to consistently score at about or just above 80% on the practice tests. If you're still scoring in like the low 70s, you're probably not ready. You're going to really struggle on it. Okay. And then practice across all the domains regularly. So don't just focus on domain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then decide, week after week, and then go take the exam without going back and revisiting the other ones. I mean, to me, that seems pretty obvious, but needs to be said. Okay. Last one, and then I guess I'll see if there's any more questions. So once you get your CISSP, it's a certification that you have to maintain. It From a monetary perspective, it's annual. There's an annual maintenance fee or an AMF, currently $135. And then you also have to maintain CPEs. And the CPEs, it works out to what they want you to do is 120 credits over 3 years, right? So, understanding that some years you might be able to get more than others, but it has to work out to 120 credits over the 3 years. Most of those credits have to come from actual domain expertise. You can get some, and I don't have the breakdown, but there are some other, there are a few other some credits you can get through like non-domain expertise, like we just took a management or a leadership class or something like that that's not specific to InfoSec. That can give you a little bit, but most of it is going to be through domain expertise. So everything from webinars, reading things, writing things. So writing blogs, reading blogs or books, attending training events. You don't get credit for teaching. So if you're an instructor, you don't get any credit for teaching, but you do get some credit for preparing your materials for teaching. And it's limited. So it doesn't equate to like if it takes you a whole, like if you're teaching like a day-long class, you're not going to get a day's worth of CPEs for that. You're going to get probably an hour or something. I can't remember what they have a chart. So volunteering at events, InfoSec events can get you. Actually, no, it's not events. They have ISC2 has a specific program. There's probably other things that can qualify as well. Their program is I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's designed for like reaching out to the local community and helping people better understand how to protect themselves. So think like elderly, kids, maybe neighbors, that sort of thing. So, and there's a program that you can get involved in there for the volunteering. And then there's multiple other options on there too. Okay. So, um, yeah, when a credit is typically equated to an hour. So that's all I have for today.
So it's a lot, right? I mean, I'm having flashbacks to I took it 22 years ago and I studied for 12 months. And
Mhm.
and I was the master of overkill. I got three different textbooks. I went to the Eric Cole's class. I went in for Sands back in the day. I took like three different practice test things. I made flashcards. I did everything because I'm a sweat grenade. I think it was $250 then, but that was a lot of money back in the Neanderthal age. And
Oh
I
yeah.
just, it's your risk aversion. I was like, be over prepared. Try everything. Everyone's different. What works, you know, you've got to know you. But to me, you better be prepared.
Yeah,
It covers so much.
it does.
Jason, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I know some people signed up for your class while this was going on. It's a pay what you can class. And so if anyone's interested in doing that, there's the Antisyphon website. You can sign up for Jason's class on CISSP. And it's a pay what you can. I think the minimum is, do you recall the minimum for that?
I want to say it's
It's a-
100.
It's 100, yeah.
So
Look at the options out there and pay fair market if you can. If you're a starving student, okay.
Okay.
But I did want to talk about, so we are using a service called Accredible. So ACCRED, like Accredible.
Okay.
That is where we send our certs to you for attending these webcasts. And so if you have not received a cert from us, you get one every time you attend an Anti-cast or webcast. Maybe check your spam filter looking for Accredible. And we keep track of every single one that you attend. So it's tied to your email address. So if you go and check your account, you'll see all of the things that you've attended as far as Anti-cast go, and then you see all the things that you've attended, Black Hills goes and active countermeasures. So we're trying to do the best we can to assemble all that into one place so that way you can go and grab your CPEs that you need from your certs in the future. So just something that we're doing, and it's newish. Yeah, go ahead, then.
Well, someone said I've got Credible and then like 30 Gutenberg. So it used to be Gutenberg and we just switched to Credible. So, and we're working on loading in all of the past Gutenberg certs into a Credible, so they'll all be together.
Yeah.
But as you can imagine, it's a lot.
Yeah. Imagine there's an intern who's like, okay, so you're going to sit here today and you're going to do this for a long time. And they're like, and I get paid for this? Yes, you do. Good job.
Like, why do I want to get into cyber? It doesn't feel like I'm doing cyber stuff.
Yeah, that'll happen a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
CJ, did you see any other questions that you wanted to ask?
There was a whole bunch of people asking, and I think a lot of the community answered things. What websites do you like? It's like, I haven't found any of them that I thought were terrible or awful. Look at reviews on books and things, those matter. Like I'd always did multiple, like I did at least 2 of the 1,100-page books. And the ISC squared material isn't as good. Like Jason pointed out that Eric Cole like kind of says it in a way that's helpful, right? The ISC squared stuff is pretty much just the facts, man. So again, you gotta find what works for you.
Yeah. I also wanted to share, not everyone knows this exists, right? Like we do a lot of things and not everyone knows. If you go to poweredbybhis.com, you'll find the recordings for all of these videos. You can also find them on YouTube. But if you go to poweredbybhis.com, you'll see the recordings of the past webcast and Anti-cast and all the upcoming webcast and Anti-cast and 6-hour trainings that Active Countermeasures does. So powered by BHIS, and we'll put that in Discord also here inside. I think if you go to the resources tab inside Zoom, you click on resources, you go to links, you should be able to find that link there.
Yeah. Someone asked.
Oh, good.
Someone asked, why do you keep this as your only cert? Did that get answered? Did I miss that?
Mm.
I've got an answer for me.
Yeah, that is a good question. Um, well, for one, some of my previous certs are SANS, and I just didn't want to keep giving SANS and GIAC more money. So I let those lapse. And other than that, I I've just never really been big on certs. I think that overall experience counts for more. And so once you have that under your belt, the certification, I mean, it's okay to go out and get one, but getting one and then maintaining it indefinitely just to have more letters in your signature, to me, some people like to do that. I don't see any value in doing that. The CISSP, again, it's like we said, this is the leadership broad, mile wide, inch deep type of. I know a little bit about everything in InfoSec. I think it's worth keeping that one.
Yeah.
And I think you brought up a good point earlier where like if this is like the bar for the law industry or like it's good to have a baseline. So this feels like the baseline.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
Jason
that's
probably
my take.
doesn't. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, that's my take. That's one of the big reasons I keep it. I teach it, and so I feel like if I wasn't current and on my CISP, that'd be, I don't know.
That might actually be
weird.
a violation of the code of ethics, right?
Yeah, I do believe it is. So like that's one thing. The other is I do think it's the closest we have to trying to get there with like a professional organization, and whether we need you can't practice or you can't do this thing the same way that accountants or the bar, like, if you try to represent yourself as a lawyer in court and you're not on the bar, like then you can be prosecuted for that. I don't think we need that. There's arguments that people could have, but I just don't. But I do believe as a voluntary thing, there's power in that, and that there's value in that. And I get to be part of ISC too, and participate in my local group. And I don't know, I want to be representative of what we're doing with the community in ISC too. So that's why I keep mine. Also, if I needed it, like needed, like someone's like, "Oh, are you up to date?" I don't want to go back and have to try to fix that by taking the exam again. It's a really hard exam.
All right, CJ,
Real quick.
we're running out of time. So I'm going to, CJ, if you could wrap up everything you heard and everything you want to say in one sentence, what would it be?
Oh boy.
CISSP is hard, but it's good, and you need help. Get help.
Okay. Jason, if you could wrap up everything that you talked about today in one final thought, what would it be?
Come and do the CISSP mentorship program with Securities and Antisyphon.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Oh, man.
Oh,
I just
buddy.
said hello. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today on this Antisyphon Anti-cast. I wasn't sure I was going to be here today.
Yeah, we were planning on it.
Were you planned to be here today?
Sure.
So plan to be here next week. There's going to be an Anti-cast next week, and the week after, and the week after that, week after that. Kathy's planning them out throughout 2025. And so we would love for you to return. We do not send you emails that are spammy or about advertising. We send you emails about upcoming Anti-cast. So please join us for future Anti-cast. Jason, thank you for sharing your knowledge, and hopefully people sign up for your mentorship class. That sounds great. CJ, thanks for being here, helping with Q&A, and for everyone that joined us for pre-show banter, thank you so much for doing that. We'll see you in the next pre-show banter, next Anti-cast. All right, Ryan, kill with fire.
We'll see people tomorrow too.
Oh yeah, the BHIS webcast.
Oh yeah, kill it. Just kill it. Kill it.
Fire.
All right, Ryan, kill it.